All right, Scott, you there?
I'm here. I had some VPN issues. Took me a while to get through.
Oh, that's
I'm in.
okay. All good. We'll go ahead and get started. We have yourself and Mr. Mark on the phone. His daughter plays high school golf, so he's looking to just kind of help relay some, themes to her. And he's got her signed up for some online lessons. Scott's doing online lessons with me right now. So a nice little community going here of people I'm working with. So today's topic was supposed to be swing power, like speed and power. I wanted to touch on that as a theme. I've been kind of going through some different parts of the swing, and Scott's been on a lot of the calls. But I think this one is interesting because, I come from, my overall philosophy is to be really like free and smooth with your swing, and that like good mechanics will be automated if you let them happen and you move efficiently. A general theme that I have is kind of the body's the engine, the arms are like rope, and therefore if you get the body moving, they'll pull the arms, and the arms will release the wrists, and the wrists will extend the club, and sort of everything should line up. That's this idealistic viewpoint that I have of the golf swing, and I think that that's what good players feel when they talk about how they're swinging, but I don't think that it's impossible. We can actually try to make golf swings like that. And I've actually on my own journey, as now I'm getting a little older, and 2 kids later, and finally kind of focusing back on my fitness and trying to get stronger again. I've really dived into trying to build more strength in my own body and game again, because I knew I lost some particularly off the driver. And all my students always want more distance, right? So my typical approach up to probably about a year ago has been from the point of view of like, let me help you make a efficient swing, meaning good sequence, like overall just good flow, good sequence, so that we're not being really all arms or just not using the body. So just kind of getting the body moving. That's kind of first line of defense. And certainly second is, are you hitting the center of the club face? Because when we talk about getting more distance, it really comes down to ball speed off the face. Are you maximizing how fast that ball is coming off the face? And the main thing that's going to make it go faster, regardless of club head speed, is center face contact. So I think that if you can identify if you're hitting it in the center of the face or you're not, what are your patterns, and then saying, why is this happening if you're not center? That is probably the first thing you have to identify. Are you actually hitting solid golf shots? If the answer is yes, then you can continue to build, and I say like up the ante in what your current golf swing is, your sequence, like how you're implying speed, imparting speed into your swing. So you kind of take what you're doing, you try to increase it or magnify it a bit, and just get everything moving a little faster. The one hang up I have personally, I still come back to this, I'm still searching, to be totally honest, is I truly want effortless power. I feel like that's playable. So in terms of golf course and scoring capabilities and consistency, effortless power is the way to go. But for me, effortless power, there's a ceiling to it. Like if I'm trying to get faster than what I can do in an effortless way, I have to start to grind a little harder. And so, there's a couple different approaches here. Number one is, how do you get everything moving faster and doing it with stability and control, meaning that I could swing really maybe faster but not coordinate it. That's a problem, because now the ball's going to go right, left, who knows where, bad contact. Now I start to compromise the ability to hit the center of the face. So I want to have more speed, but with control, with stability in my body, so I can actually deliver the club face still accurately to the ball. That's the holy grail of, I think, building speed, building swing power. So first, is your engine working well? Second is, are you hitting the center of the club face? And those might be even, opposite order. I don't know which comes first. They kind of are both pretty important. And then trying to get the whole engine moving faster. So quality of movement, quality of hit, and then like how much speed do you have. So that's how I'm looking at it. That's the lens at which I'm like looking at speed and power through. So the first thing I wanted to address is, what's the difference between club heads? What is speed? Number one, like, and the difference between club head speed and ball speed, because a lot of times people will say like, well, you just need to increase your club head speed if you want to hit it further, and that is true, but only if the ball speed increases, because you could have higher club head speed and crappy ball speed, hit it out on the toe or off the heel or low on the face, and the ball's not going to go farther. So technology is obviously a big deal. Having equipment that's current enough that you're helping yourself get as much ball speed as possible for off-center hits, like driver in particular. Irons are important too, but when we're talking about distance or speed, a lot of times we're asking for more, usually off the tee. That's where people want it the most, because we have 13 other clubs in the bag, right? So there's always other clubs you can use when you're at 150 yards. It's nice to hit an 8-iron from 150 instead of a 6 hybrid. Like, if we can up our speed, we have the ability to have a shorter club in our hand, but ultimately you still have other clubs. So I think driver's kind of where like my mind goes when we talk about speed and power. So from that, understanding and just clarifying ball speed and club head speed, I just wanted to make that point kind of early on in our conversation today, and the value of center face contact. On drivers, I don't know if you guys are aware too, we'll grab my driver equipment here. The difference in spin coming off the face, when I use TrackMan or Flight Scope, I spray the face and then I kind of like see where I'm hitting it and then look at the numbers, because that's like the complete picture of what's really going on. High, low, right, left, like the spin massively changes. So we get higher spin sometimes higher spin up here and lower spin down here, which changes the launch angles. Higher spin typically off the right and left, but it's reverse effects of what you would think. So with gear effect, ball spins opposite of the side of the face at which it gets hit. So off the toe, ball spins for a right-handed player right to left, and off the heel spins left to right. So that gear effect is something to note. And the minute you hit it off center, a new club like an Epic or a Maverick or whatever, Titleist, TaylorMade brands you have, are going to help that still fly pretty damn good. But it's nice to understand when you see your impact mark what effect that might be having, not only on shot shape but also sucking energy out of the shot. Certainly higher spin is always going to be a loss of distance. For slower swing speeds, and I don't know where your daughter is, Mark, but there's a point where when you have slower swing speeds, you need enough spin, and that's why we put like those kind of golfers, seniors, ladies, and sometimes juniors, into equipment that has softer shafts and heads that promote a little bit more spin overall with more loft to launch the ball higher and keep the ball in the air longer. So depending on the kind of player, we want to optimize which is going to make for more distance. So that's how we get more distance. But we got to come back to swing power itself, like the engine. What are we doing to then try to drive more body speed, but then also we got to move that club head faster at some point if we're trying to up the whole level of how far the ball could go. So let's just take a number like 90 miles per hour as an example. If that's your current baseline and you want to move faster, again, you have to move the needle of club head speed up eventually, assuming you're still getting decent contact, so that you can start to hit it farther. So how do we increase club head speed is the next question. We just talked about ball speed and what like attributes to more ball speed. I could sit in a chair, or I could put myself like knees on the ground and still hit my driver probably 70% or 80% of how far it would go if I was on my feet. And that's because a lot of speed comes from the ability to move the club head fast with the wrists. That sounds a little scary to people because they feel like the minute they use their wrists that their club face is going to do a lot of twisting and they're not going to lose control. But relaxed muscles are fast muscles. So I always preach this idea of free wrists and like jello wrists and unlocking your wrist, because if you're loose in the wrist joint, if you have a neutral grip and you're loose in the wrist joint, when all the slack comes out of the arms at that widest part of the arc, way down here, we're hoping to line this moment up with the golf ball so that the face is square and not closed or open. And it would be closed or open if we're manipulating to that point, or maybe we catch the ball at a part of the arc that's not where we're squaring off. So ball position is a big deal on that square moment. But the square moment is going to be when you're at full extension with a neutral grip, right? Full extension. If I'm at kind of collapsed positions in here, now we have twisting a lot of times of the face. We're holding off moves and things like this. But when I fully extend, that typically gets me to a square position, at which point, past full extension, I'm going to get a rolling action over here a little bit. My forearms are going to start to roll over, the wrists, you could say, but more through the forearms. This is the wrists, by the way, right? That's a part of it. That definitely drives speed. And then, of course, the shoulders and the arms kind of contributing as well. And then the torso. So it's interesting, the relationship between those different levers and how they can help produce some whipping action. But ultimately, that's what we're trying to do, is crack the whip and get all that speed to deliver out at full potential at the right time. And the only way you can maximize the speed of that club head is if you're relaxed. If you're tight, it slows everything down. So I think that you want to acknowledge being loose through the arms and the wrists while still holding the club, so not like losing the grip, because then you're going to get face twisting. So that combination of like medium grip pressure and loose wrists is what we're looking for. I remember an article in a magazine, I think it was about a year or two ago, and I like clipped it out because I thought it was so perfect. Lexi Thompson, who's one of longer hitters, she really works on her fitness, but she was quoted, they asked her about hitting it far and stuff for ladies, and she said, yeah, I don't like grip it lightly, so I grip it tight, but I have really loose wrists. I was like, that's exactly what I've been preaching, and that you have to, the faster you swing, the more that club's going to want to get out of your hands. So you have to hold the club, but we have to have relaxed wrists. So that combination is kind of tough to teach a lot of people, I find. And then when you get it, you get it, but then it's still something a lot of people have to work at and maintain, do some maintenance work on that combination of trying to hold the club but still be loose in the wrists and the arms. So tension in the body, big deal for talking about speed and having swing power. And I think then the next is if we work from almost there inward, because as I was saying, if I sit on a chair on my knees, I can still kind of whip the club head around me at decent speed. So to build more, kind of add more gas in the tank, if you will, we're layering in now the ability to use the ground to impart more force into the kind of upper half of our engine, which is torso, arms, and wrists. So people talk about ground forces, and I did the Instagram post that you guys are both on there following me, saw it, about the skater drill where I like jumped back like this and then through like this, and I was just saying how that drill can kind of light up your lower body to help impart more ground forces into your swing. I think sometimes people are like unstable in their lower body, and so to go back to sitting, if I sit with my feet off the ground, it's going to be harder to swing and move the club head faster than just having my feet on the ground. Now I actually have something to kind of push off against. Even though I'm not using my lower body, I actually am using the ground. If you try to swing standing on ice, you would fall down because your body's trying to lever the ground, but you can't stabilize. So then there's no control, and there's actually less speed that you can generate because you have nothing to push off against or rotate against. So a connection with the ground is very, very important. And so using your legs and your feet to help connect you and multiply power is something a lot of players do really well. A lot of high-end players do really well. And I think that the modern player now, the modern young player, is doing it as best as it's ever been done compared to, say, some of the, you know, I think Freddie Couples, he was Boom Boom Couples or whatever his nickname was, right? Like, he was known to be a fairly long hitter. And he definitely used the ground, but he kind of had a lot of that 1980s, 90s, little loopy kind of thing. Plus, he had that flow to him and it worked for him. But, today you don't see any of that. You see these guys more like machines, really like pistons, using their lower body differently and pushing, and they're very built muscularly in their legs. They do work on their glute strength and explosive power, and they do speed training, obviously, as well as heavy weight lifting to try to build strength in their legs to really like multiply what they can produce in terms of a release then with their upper body. So the analogy I like to use is a catapult. So if you think of a trebuchet model, I have this in the book. Mark, he just bought the book. Scott, I don't know if you've seen my notation on this, but a trebuchet catapult has a base, like an A-frame base, and then the big arm that gets released. So if the base is not nailed into the ground, there's not going to be a very good catapult effect, right? So they have to nail the base of the catapult into the ground, at which point now the arms can swing through, and whether it's going up or down, hopefully you get the imagery there that has to be the relationship between sort of the, I'll say, lower and upper part of the catapult. So if you think about that in golf swing, here's my A-frame, I have to be using the ground and it's somewhat like nailed to the ground with what? Both my feet? Well, that's not necessarily going to help me if I'm frozen and nailed, but definitely that left foot is down. At least probably through impact. You have some guys that jump, and that works for them, and they use more we call vertical forces. Some guys are more rotational and they drive more around. Not as many high players are dominant in a lateral plane of motion. You don't see that as much. So typically it's a blend of all three, but you'll see some guys that are with driver particularly more jumpy, more vertical. Junior golfers are a lot that way because they lack some core strength and rotational speed. They're not as stable in that plane of motion, but they're more powerful if they use vertical forces. So it's interesting to think about like how people are using the lower half of their body, whether they're using it more vertically, more rotationally, maybe a combination of both. But I think the biggest difference personally I've felt, and I've worked a lot this winter before COVID, especially indoors, training people with some different tools that I had, researched and tried myself, and seeing what worked to try to help people like ignite their lower body better, so that when you're pushing those feet and those legs and those quads and everything is pushing and turning, it makes it feel then more effortless in the upper body and the arms to catapult the rest of it through. And I think that's where, when I try to swing faster, impart more swing power, I find myself working harder in my legs, like consciously working harder in my legs, and in my core. And I still try to maintain this feeling of loosey-goosey arms and wrists. There's, I guess, an unconscious connection probably of me just swinging through and squaring up the face. I try to make it as automatic and like I don't manipulate at all. And so, that's my philosophy. And so if I can do more work with the bigger muscles and let those smaller muscles just kind of without relax and react, that's hopefully a recipe for a very free, not manipulated swing that can hopefully provide some consistency. That's my kind of overall thought on the engine and what is going to help to drive a little bit more speed. I think that I'll pause there for a moment. I have a few more points to make, definitely, but I'll just take questions if you have any. Scott, do you, by chance, can you connect with those feelings at all, or do you have any questions?
No, I try to drive down with my leading leg when I come through impact a lot. Cause I know, well, that's just some of the things I've been taught. I've also been using speed sticks and trying to work on my swing speed with those. And then I also have that Twitch trainer. Have you ever seen that? It's like the big fan that you just like whip through with a rope.
Yep.
You got it? Yeah. So yeah, I use that too to try to get that whipping motion. But
yeah, it's good.
I do have the problem. you're talking about. It's like my arms really tense up when I come through the swing. And I think that's, I used to play a lot of baseball and ice hockey, and especially in ice hockey, I was just, when you rear back, I mean, you're just like clenched down really hard. So
I think
that's where you see a lot of tension I have.
That's a good point. When I went to the PGA show this year, I did the Mach 3 speed training class, and they use all the ropes, and I've demonstrated a few of them in some videos I've made, but they have these long battle ropes, and you swing them different ways, and then some other tools. And what I found the most, like, their message was speed out front and, really, really driving the rib cage, the whole torso through faster, faster, faster. You can only drive the rib cage through faster when your legs are also strong, because you have to have something you're turning against. So it kind of goes back to, really grinding hard, using your legs to be a platform to turn against, but then that upper body speed, they talked a lot less about like any kind of hip speed, like not much at all. They were really focused on core, and they kept talking about rib cage, and I was like, okay, well, I get that, and it can be definitely helpful, because the more you're driving the rib cage through faster and faster and faster, and you kind of build the muscles, certainly obliques, core, but even through the upper body, to move as fast as possible and fire as fast as possible once the lower body has gotten in position. So for example, maybe I fire to here, now I'm stable, and that next segment I'm transferring energy to, when this starts to slow down, I basically like reached my maximum rotation, however position you want to be, maybe more like here. But now I'm like on top of what you could call a stable lower base. I'm not rolled or anything, I'm in balance. And then it's that next chunk of the body, that next segment that's got to fire. If you're lazy with the upper body, then what happens, and this is interesting because I have players that do this, guys that'll get here and then they leave the upper body back. They don't fire their chest or their core, and they kind of flip it. And so they actually get high club head speed, but what they lose is what? Face control. So I have one guy that, he really relies on the wrist action that he creates through impact for speed, but then he always complains that he overdraws it and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, we have to probably quiet the release down a little bit, because if you get too much flipping before the upper body has a chance to also get cleared, then now you're going to get a lot of forearm rotation, which is going to do what? Close the face. You do that long enough, then you realize you don't want to close the face, and if you don't change your body positions, people start to block it, and they start to chicken wing, right? Like, it's just that it escalates into other face control issues. So I'm a fan of a free release, but your body has to be in a position where you're going to promote a free release that actually squares the face up and doesn't close the face. Because if I'm too closed for too long because I didn't fire the upper body when I should have, then you're going to get this, which does what? Closes the face, right? So this has to fire first, second, and then you have kind of like total freedom to just let the arms take a ride. And I think so there's value to what the Mach 3 training system really focuses on, but it's not the only part either. I think that through their drills, you build a stronger lower body too, because you have to if you're going to move the rib cage faster. And by mentally thinking about the speed delivery out front instead of like down at the ball, that helps a lot of people that have an early release, that are throwing away power too soon, people that are casters or flippers or scoopers. This product of theirs, it's not a rope, it's the jet stick. It's very similar to just holding a club upside down and like whooshing it, or taking an alignment rod and listening for the whoosh. But basically with the with this one, you know, the feeling, there is enough weight here that you can hear it and you can feel the release point. So if I release it early and I stop my chest, like there's a pull, there's a tug kind of right over here. So what I want is a much smoother feel, like all the way through. And that is only going to be accomplished by continuing to pivot the body. So, you know, there's that. There's a lot of training tools out there that can help develop those skills.
Is that one similar to like the orange whip? Because I have the orange whip as well.
Similar, slightly different feel. Because there's like that second lever.
Okay.
It's not bendy. This is a steel shaft. Yeah, it's different. It's a different feel. I mean, similar concept, but definitely a different feel. I like them all for different reasons. I mean, I have a whole collection now, right? I can't tell you which one I like maybe the best.
Yeah.
But I do think that speed sticks have, their protocol is interesting. You obviously have to do it for a lot of weeks to see like sustained results and then stick with it. I don't know that it helps patterning as much as it just helps get people to like move faster. So there's a value to it. You already have a you already have like a good pattern, so at least you're not ingraining bad habits. I worry about people with bad swings that are just trying to move everything faster with that program, because they're not going to be any better. Does that make sense? So I think if you have good mechanics, it's okay.
I think the next thing, you know, getting a little off subject here, the next thing I want to work on is trying to extend better. I think that will help me a lot more too, because, you know, I still kind of get that folded up arm when I come to the impact. So I think I'm not turning my body correctly, I don't feel, when I'm at impact, which is, I think that'll affect the ball speed as well.
You know, the next question that you have to ask is too, what is your physical capabilities with your body through that part of the swing? Like, I know I'm pretty flexible, but let's say in my hip, if I'm tight, you know, it might not be an outwardly thing like, oh, I feel like I'm tight. I just may have a limitation in my hip, or maybe I didn't realize how my, you know, hamstrings or my calves or lats, or there might be a part of you that you are or are not aware of that's just holding you back from kind of like just getting through it, you know? So there could be a little bit of a mobility thing underlying that, you know, you're not experiencing, but could be there, that you could work through to help create some freedom of motion through that last part of the swing. And for what it's worth, again, the faster you try to swing, the more mobile you kind of need to be, right, to like really get through with speed, because the tightness will start to show up when you try to swing faster. Your body will bail out of positions that it can't move through. So consider, you know, digging a little deeper or thinking about that too as you're swinging. Try to feel where you're getting stuck specifically, and there may be some physical screens that, you know, we can do, or I can direct you to somebody to kind of dive deeper into that side of it, like more truly the physical side of it. I'll turn it to Mark for a moment. What if any questions do you have at this time? I'm gonna probably go on here for another like 5 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up.
Sounds good. Just two things really kind of stuck out. You made a lot of sense with the full extension. And I kind of relate it to, a lot of people tend to guide that club because they're looking for a little accuracy, where they don't necessarily trust the body to release the club and the timing of it. So they come down, you know, kind of guiding it and slow that swing speed down, and they're not maximizing their swing speed at impact. So, you know, that made a lot of sense. You know, it kind of goes like what you had said at the beginning with having, you know, getting the body moving with the free and smooth swing. And then being able to make the adjustments there. The second thing that really kind of made a good point with was you were talking about transferring the power from the legs to the core through the upper body and out the arms. And, you know, you immediately go back to pictures of Hogan's 5 fundamentals. and the drawings that they made and what he had to say with it. So, for me, that was the visual, of that, where both with myself, I tend to be more of an upper body swing. I tend not to fire those legs, just kind of to protect the back a little bit, with not being quite as flexible through that core area. So my upper body does a lot more of my work. But yeah, I liked, I like that.
You have to, when you're looking, because he coaches a high school team, so when you're looking at your players, and yourself and your daughter, it's good to look through the lens of what's the dominant half.
Yeah.
A lot of times junior golfers are really mobile, really flexible, and they don't have that like stability or muscle built yet.
Yep.
Boys and girls particularly, but they're so lanky that like they just spin out, if you will, with the lower body, and they don't almost have enough core strength or control to get the upper body around when they need it.
Yeah.
And so then they get flippy and stuff.
And they're still learning how to control their body. Yeah. They're still trying to put that lower body and upper body together to get them to work together, to maximize their efficiency.
Yeah, and I hate they never like to hear me say when I work with teenagers that have that issue. I'm like, I want you to hit some swings like flat-footed, where you feel like everything's moving together, and they're like, but I'm not going to hit anywhere. I'm like, but you're going to hit straight.
Yep.
So it's like you don't want to take away their speed and try and explain to them that there's other ways also of getting speed. And when you have too much separation, it's not a good thing. So that key for you, like if you're very upper body dominant, you have to like be patient and hold your arms back longer and try to get the lower body to get a little ahead. And sometimes for, a lot of guys, middle-aged, guys and women too, that just have lost some mobility over the years, they're tight, they have back injuries, whatever, sit a lot, their legs are tight. It's hard to like get that twist going. And so working at it is important, and trying to limber up the spine, the lower spine and the legs enough that you can get the sequence that you want. Sometimes it's just a motor pattern that you have to practice, and other times, like Scott, maybe there is a little bit of a physical limitation somewhere that you are or may not be aware of. So yeah, you have to look at the player, what their body's obviously doing, where the dominant move is, where they're kind of getting out of sync. Is it from the top? Is it late? Like where is it not lining up? And you both may know about the kinematic sequence. If you don't, you can certainly do some research on it. I do have a little segment on it in my book, just the general theme of this, whipping action and the idea and pelvis, chest, thoracic spine, right, arms, and then finally club head. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of sequence right through impact, that as one nugget slows, one little segment slows down, then it transfers energy for the next one. If everything just globally spins through, you're going to have a swiping action at the ball instead of a whoosh, whipping action. So for me to like whip the arms out, this has to stop moving at some point. Where golfers get trouble is they stop moving something too soon, and then another piece takes over earlier than they want it to, or they don't really post up soon enough, and they're way out in front of it, a la junior golfers, and then they have to save it.
Yep.
Right at the
Flip
end.
the wrists.
So, yeah, that's really that loss of leverage. One really good analogy: the club itself, when you're swinging it fast, effectively has a lot of G-force and like weight. So even though this is only like a pound or two, whatever, like it effectively weighs maybe 40 pounds when you're swinging it. Does that make sense? So if you were to deadlift 40, 50, 60 pounds, depending on your club head speed, you wouldn't do it from a posture like this. You have to get in a posture where you're not going to hurt yourself to lift a heavy weight off the floor. You know what I mean? Or if I told you that this weighed 50 pounds and you had to swing it, you're going to do it to not hurt yourself. So what does that look like? Try to put your body in a position at impact where you're like ready to deliver a lot of weight as opposed to being in a position where you can hurt yourself. So that's a good like imagery to sell somebody on that might be really out of position. So you can ask them to like freeze at impact and then say, okay, now I'm going to just like give you 50 pounds of free weights. Can you hold it here for, can you support this weight? You know, something like that. Then have them rearrange their body to tell me where are you going to be at impact to present this kind of speed. So hopefully these things get you, you know, thinking. I will be having, if not next week, the week after, like a whole bunch of Instagram lives with fitness people on. So, you know, you can tune into those, or I'll try to put the replays back on YouTube so you can watch them later. But I like Orange Whip's GFX program. I'm going to be doing a bunch of little work with them on the side. So you'll see some content coming with that program. So they have like swing workout of the day, a lot of it with resistance training and some with the light speed product that they have as well. I like what they're doing. I certainly, you know, like parts of the Mach 3 stuff. If you're looking for more resources and like equipment that you can do with your high school kids, or Scott, if you're looking for more ideas, Mach 3 speed training, you know, super speed's fine as well. I told you my opinion on that. And, you know, just overall strength training, strength and conditioning, to blend the combination of like what you're doing to increase speed, like literally swinging faster, understanding how your body can move faster with balance, and then backing it up with stronger muscles and mobility. Like it has to be the blend to have more swing power. And as far as the effortless power, like I'm still on that search of how I'm going to make my swing continue to move faster. If I put in the hard work and I do the right drills, how can I ultimately then make it feel effortless? I think it might just be a process for the new normal of, you know, me building speed, building strength to make it feel like that naturally imparts more of an effortless feel to deliver more speed. I think it's just a process. It's kind of like maxing out in the gym. Like it takes a lot of effort to like max out on a set, but eventually where you maxed out maybe 5 months ago is your new normal that you can maybe bench for 8 reps. You know, so you have more stamina with more weight when you work at it, and it doesn't feel like it's as hard to do. So when you build golf muscle or literally just body muscle, you can do things and it doesn't feel as hard. So right now I can do about 15 push-ups before I'm done. Maybe in a couple months I can do 30, right? My stamina increases, my muscle literally increases, and what was hard before is not so hard. So I think that's kind of like part of building swing power, is it's also a process. So it might feel like I'm swinging with effort now to swing faster, but then if I keep upping the ante, my baseline will improve. Does that make sense? So that's my 2 cents on swing power.
That's good.
Guys, some things to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm looking forward to reading your book, and then we'll touch base in a couple weeks.
Yes, sounds great. I'll put your book in the mail, I think this afternoon. I got the note that it came through, you know, like yesterday, so I'm getting to the post office, I think, today. It takes probably 4 or 5 days to get to you.
Yep, not a hurry.
Yep. All right, Scott, any last questions or anything?
No, I just, you know, I'm out hitting every day, you know, working on stuff that we're going through. And I'll be in touch. We're gonna continue this next month as well. If you're still offering me a limited thing next month.
Oh yeah, I still will, considering this current state of affairs, and it's gonna still be a little bit of a process for me to like get back into teaching live again. I mean, it's tough just with my kids home from school. That's the biggest challenge. Is I could theoretically go back to work and just try to give safe golf lessons, but I don't want to bring germs home, and I don't want to spread anything. That's part of the concern. But then I also, my kids are home, my husband's still got to work. Like, what the heck am I going to do here? You know, so until the summer when I can get them in some kind of camps, like I might just have to go back on the weekends for a while at first, or maybe just like do some late afternoon lessons or part-time it for a little while and get them through the remainder of the school year so they have some structure in the mornings. It's like very challenging right now. So,
well,
at least they're old enough to keep themselves busy, but